Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
Hey, it's William, and welcome to today's episode of the Catalytic Leadership Podcast. Each week, we tackle a topic related to the field of leadership. My goal is to ensure that you have actionable steps you can take from each episode to grow in your own leadership. Growth doesn't just happen. My goal is to help you become intentional about it. Each week, we spotlight leaders from a variety of fields, organizations, and locations. And my goal is for you to see that leaders can be catalytic no matter where they are or what they lead. I draw inspiration from the stories and journeys of these leaders, and I hear from many of you that you do too. Let's jump into today's interview. I'm thrilled today to have Jenna Righi on the show. She created Link Before You Sink, LBYS, a handmade jewelry business that was created to find strength by linking with other people. She created this after going through her own personal struggle. While riding her bike one day, the chain broke. She looked down and she had an epiphany. The symbolism of links and connection while being broken hit her. And she suddenly realized she could make jewelry charms out of the broken bike chain. Her mission is to find strength by linking with others. And this jewelry is worn as a reminder that you are not alone. LBYS has now been linked in 20 countries. Jenna, I'm so excited you're here today. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
I would love for you to share some of your story with our listeners, how you got started, particularly around your journey and your development as a leader. How'd you get started?
Yeah, so it goes back to 2014. So I was living in Florida at the time, and it was just one of those things when it went through a really hard time in my life. So I lost my father to a long battle of cancer. I actually broke off my engagement the following week. And then a couple of days after that, I lost a really close family friend of mine. So I knew I needed to come back. So I was living in Florida with my fiance, but I knew I needed to come back to Ohio to my support system. And I was terrified. I didn't have a glimmer of hope. I had monthly reoccurring student loans. I didn't have anybody that was going to pay those for me, but I knew I needed to put my mental health first and, again, get back to my support system. So on that 23-hour car ride, no radio on, just a deep thought thinking, what am I going to tell people? I made a promise to myself that when, not if, I got back on my feet, I would pay it forward to others going through tough times. And I didn't know how I was going to do it at the time, but that stuck with me. And so it was about 3.5 years later, I was riding my bike and the chain actually fell off and broke, and I was ticked off and I looked down, and it was just one of those aha moments. I realized that, again, I could make jewelry charms out of the broken bike chain. So our mission was set that day. And as you stated, it's to find strength by linking with others.
I love that. Why do you think linking with other people is so important?
It's honestly how I truly got through that tough time in my life. So, and just to clarify, we link through our jewelry. It's worn as a reminder that you're not alone. And we link through story sharing through our blog. So each piece, or jewelry links, as we call them, you receive an anonymous story that was submitted through our blog. And then it takes you back to like the QR code where you can read these other stories. So that's the verb of linking. And that is so important because that's how I got through my tough time, and I was like, it took me a while to get there. I was really quiet. Like I was suddenly back in Columbus with no job. It was embarrassing. People were asking me, what do you do? And I was like, I don't really know. I'm in transition. The more I linked up and got vulnerable with other people, the more people reciprocated with me. So I think connection, it's got how I got through my tough time. And, I always say alone we are strong, but linked we are stronger.
So what are some different ways that you link people together?
Yep. So mainly our jewelry. Well, two ways, blog and jewelry. So when we actually started off with, when you break apart a bike chain, it breaks down between a flat and a double. And I'm actually wearing the flat right now. So our pieces are worn as a reminder that you're not alone. But to me, the verb of linking is more important. So when you purchase that piece, we connect you with a story of somebody that's going through a similar struggle. And our blog Anybody can go on there. And I always encourage, if you have a story, please share it. You never know the lives that you touch with your own story, but you can go on there and find like a topic. We do just insert stories or inspirational stories, and you never know which one you're going to get, but you can always go back to the blog and find a topic that resonates with you, whether that's fertility issues or loss or cancer or depression, anxiety. I mean, there's all different the ways that we link through that blog.
I imagine there's a lot of great stories there.
There are, and some are really sad. And, this question that I actually get is like, how do you take all that in? And it's like, I know I'm serving a bigger purpose, but there are a lot of great stories, and anything with children or childhood cancer, those ones particularly really touch me. But it is important to share that, to know that somebody else is also maybe going through that, unfortunately. So I focus on the bigger picture.
Is there one that has left a significant impression on you that you'd be willing to share?
They all do, but I actually, so I met her I'm in Columbus, Ohio. And I feel like God works in crazy ways, right? So I was at an event and I was given my little spiel, again, I hate talking about myself, but it is why we started. And I was like, here's what we do. And here's why we're created. And the woman said, oh my gosh, you have to come to this fundraiser this weekend. It was Thursday. On Sunday, can you make it happen? I was like, well, sure. What's it for? And she said, my friend's son actually killed himself because he was cyberbullied online. So anyways, I'm like, I'll be there. No worries. I'll be there. We give back a portion of proceeds, but I met her. She's since shared her story on my blog. She has a super incredible story. But that one really resonated with me personally because I met her and now I have her phone number. You know what I mean? We text and she's changing a lot with the way things happen with her son and laws are being set in motion. So that's one that I really like to share because I personally linked with her in person. Sometimes it's just online.
I love that. This is such a passion project for you. And in this case, the story you told, she has a passion project that's very near and dear to her. Mm-hmm. There are people listening who are entrepreneurs, who are leaders, who are agency owners, but there are also those who have a passion project they haven't started yet. There's something that's in their heart, that's in their mind that they haven't stepped down on. What would you say to somebody who's wrestling with that?
To start. So, and I can tell you all the hiccups that I made. There's a lot of them, but they always say, if you start when everything's perfect, you've started too late. And you learn as you go. It's frustrating to me because I have people say, oh, well, I wouldn't know how to put that together on a website, or I wouldn't know how to order that online, or I wouldn't know how to plate that. It's like, I didn't either. I just figured it out. And I always say, if your why is there, if you start something with money, when things hiccup or when things break or when hiccups happen, you usually give up. But when it's in your heart and you go back to your why, it's like, why am I doing this? You don't give up on it. So just start. And then your why will always lead you back to the next step that you should be taking. So just start baby steps. And I can, tell you, I messed up metals and it wasn't hypoallergenic. There's a lot of things. I mean, if we want to record through the weekend, I can sit here and tell you all about all my mistakes, but it's just your why will get you to that next step. So just start somewhere. Like action or things happen for you when you take action. They do not happen when you're sitting in the passenger seat. So take that baby step and go from there.
Did you ever struggle with people doubting you during the process?
Oh my gosh, I struggled with so many people doubting me. I'll tell you. So I always get the question too with like, what was your biggest struggle? And I could sit here and tell you about all the mistakes that I made. I've had influencers tell me that no one would wear that. And you're never going to make an impact by jewelry that's off of a bike chain. So when, I knew I would. I knew in my heart, and I'd cry and I'd get upset. And then the next day I'd be like, I'll tell you, I'm going to prove you wrong. But I think that the hardest thing for me, I was trying to prove myself, or it was within me. So for example, I think this resonates with all entrepreneurs. I struggled with comparison. So I'm a very unique brand. I always say I'm mission first, jewelry second. So, and I have friends that own jewelry businesses. I hired an e-commerce coach, and it was, hey, when you do this ad, you need to show the prettiness of the jewelry, or you only grow if you do wholesale. I tried wholesale. It didn't work for me because my mission was lost. So I went back to I was stuck in the comparison, and that's why you never do that. It's like, well, what's my uniqueness? My uniqueness is I have the perk of a blog. I have the perk of stories. I give back. I started doing fundraisers and products online that gave back a portion of proceeds. I crushed that. Not only was it more financially fruitful for me, but it also, my energy was full. You know what I mean? When I do an event, or when I connect with Jen, was her name, in Columbus, who lost her son, that fills my cup, where it's like wholesale didn't. So I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong, but it's like, go back to your uniqueness. Everybody has one, and focus on what makes you different than, for me, the next jewelry brand. So if you're a life coach, it is frustrating, I'm sure, to see they have more clients than me, or they're doing this different than me. It's like, but you have something different to offer than that other life coach. So go back to your unique gift. We all have one, and try not to get stuck in that comparison. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. And I think the comparison trap is one that most people will spend time in at some point in their journey.
Yeah. But so I guess to answer your question, I doubted myself. With a lot. And it was like, I have a list of like, what works, what doesn't work. And it's like, is this going back to your why? Not sales. Is this going back to your why? And then the money usually trickles from there.
Sometimes it is self-doubt. Sometimes it's what you say to yourself. And sometimes it's the voices of other people speaking that into you and over you. And in both cases, you have to figure out a way through it. You have to figure out a way around it, over it, under it, to get to the other side of it. And I love that you've done that. I love that you said, I'm not going to let that stop me.
That's why you got to start with you first, because now I'm confident in my why. And so when other people now doubt me, like an influencer, for like, oh, I wouldn't, no, it's not, you'll never make an impact with that. I'm like, that makes me actually like, oh, you're not for me now, or before, when I was doubting myself, I wasn't able to handle that feedback. It crushed me. So it's like, take care of yourself first, get out your self-doubt first, and then you're able to handle other people's negative, because they will come, other people's doubts and negative comments. But it's like, focus on you and getting your mindset right, and focus on why you're doing something, and then it boosts your confidence, and you see that you're making a difference. And then I'm ready to handle others' doubts now.
People who are listening are in different stages of their business, of their career. Some are struggling whether to start, when to start. Some have started, but they're not to the point of breakthrough yet. They're still kind of in the struggle, still in the valley. What's something you would say to them?
Focus day by day. So if you notice how I start my story, it's like, and then about 3.5, I got back to Ohio, and then 3.5 years later, we're missing that 3.5 year gap, right?
Yeah.
It was I had a lot of self-doubt. I mean, one, I didn't have a job when I started. It was like, what am I going to do next? What am I going to tell people? There was a lot that happened in that 3.5 year journey. And you just look at it as baby steps. And I feel like day by day, just take it day by day. For me, it's waking up and doing my daily devotionals and working out, and just clarity comes. You don't know when it's going to come. Like for me, it was a slap in the face when my bike broke, or my bike chain broke. I was ready to receive that gift though, because I worked on myself, and for that 3.5 years, do you know what I mean? So it's like, just take it, just keep on focusing on your day to day, plugging away, doing what you need to do, focusing on your health, and then you're ready when you get your moment. For me, it was or you get clarity. It comes. I don't know when it's going to come, but it'll come if you keep taking action. If you sit on, in the backseat, it won't come to you. So just focus on your day to day, and I think your clarity will come. I just can't tell you when, unfortunately.
If you could go back into that season, at the beginning of that 3.5 year season, if you could go back to that time and tell yourself something, what would you like to tell yourself?
You're enough, you're loved, and you'll get through this. Because I was broken. Who's going to love me now? If like somebody can't love me after the loss of my father, I didn't even have time to grieve my father. I was at the beginning, I was in shock from a broken engagement too. You know what I mean? It was like a lot of self-doubt creeped in on me, and that took time to heal from that. Yeah. I would tell that Jenna that, like, if you're a chapter book, let's look at bird's eye view. You're stuck in the crappy chapter, but the page will turn. Will turn. Just what I mean, but just focus on what you need to do to get to that turning of the chapter. So, I would tell her that it's going to be okay, and the page will turn, and you're enough, and now I'm happily married. I have a 2-year-old son. Things always work out the way they're supposed to be. It's easy for me. I always say I never read the headlines anymore, or like the highlight reels on Instagram, because it's like, what happened in between? Like, what happened in between? That's where, for me, the magic happens when you're in that dark time. Sometimes it's like, that's when I got clarity through my struggle. So,
too many entrepreneurs they compare their day to day to somebody else's highlight reel.
yes.
And they feel like they're not enough. They play the comparison game. And what they don't understand is that when you play that game, you always lose.
Always. Look at me. I spent a year trying to do, I could give you a million comparisons, but if we're talking jewelry to jewelry, I spent a year doing wholesale and it wasn't working. And it's like, because my mission was lost. Think about a jewelry link just hanging on it, like in a boutique. There's no story card with it. There's no, hey, here's the mission. Like our unboxing experience, might be biased, is pretty incredible. You're losing that with wholesale. And here I was still comparing to these other jewelry brands. I'm not another jewelry brand. I'm my own jewelry brand, and embrace your uniqueness. And that goes to get, again, with the life coach, with a fitness instructor. There's a million different fitness instructors or life coaches, or focus on your uniqueness and focus on your gift. And that's when the magic happens. But I was stuck in that comparison for a long time.
I think that's the source of so many of the bumps and bruises that entrepreneurs experience. Because they're trying to operate outside of who they are. They're trying to operate outside of their authenticity. And I love that you saw that, discovered that, and said, no, I'm doubling down on operating in this space.
And it's important to note too, because I had somebody ask me, I think it was yesterday, like, how do you shut that off? I'm like, it doesn't shut off. The microphone just turns down a little bit, and then it turns back up, and then you turn it back down a little bit, and then you turn it back, it turns back up. It never goes away. So just to be very clear, I still struggle with that. Everybody still struggles with that. I see stuff online. Oh my gosh, they're crushing it. I stink. You know what I mean? It's like, you just need to turn down that microphone a little bit each day, but you're always working on that. It doesn't ever go away.
Good advice there too. Is there a book that has made an impact on your life and your journey that you would say, hey, if you're a leader, an entrepreneur, a business owner, this is one you really need to read?
Yeah, there's a bunch, but I would say right off the cusp, it was Believe It by Jamie Kern-Lima.
Great book.
She's awesome. I actually got it free. Like, was postpartum with my son. I was reading it like he was 2 days old. I'm like, this book is incredible. It's a motivational entrepreneur book. And it's just like, right, if you got to believe it within yourself. And if you believe, for me, again, it's God. If it's like, again, a lot of wavering feelings. Am I supposed to be doing this? Should I be doing this? Am I an idiot? Like, I used to do sales and crush it easily, but like, I feel like this was placed on my heart for a reason. And it's just like, it gave me, again, more clarity that, like, believe in yourself. And if you know that this is your purpose in life, then keep going. And the rest. And she talks about, I like vulnerability. She talks about all the struggles that she had with starting a business. And she actually just launched another business I just found out about this week. So I ordered it on pre-order. So yeah, Believe It by Jamie Kern-Lima is an amazing book.
As we get to the end of the show, is there one thing you'd like people to take away from your journey so far? One thing from this episode that you're like, if you missed everything else, I want you to make sure you get this.
I want you to make sure that you embrace your unique gifts. And I know that I've talked about that, but with that means not stop comparing. And that's why I say, for me, it's jewelry. A lot of people probably do not run a jewelry business, but it's really focusing on your unique gifts, your why, write them down, and just keep going with that. And what I do is I have a Just Jenna folder. So anytime somebody sends me an inspirational email or a nice DM or a text, I screenshot that and I save it in my Just Jenna folder. So when that negative voice is turned all the way up, I get that out and reread, like, why are you doing this? Like, remember your why. And that it's like same thing with like a gratitude journal. You know what I mean? Like, write down your what you're grateful for. And for me, it's my Just Jenna folder, and just remembering that brings me back to my why, and anything. I feel like anything could happen now in my business, and stuff could break and packages could get lost in the mail. And if I go back to that folder, this is why you're doing it, and you'll get through it. And, and we'll get to the next day.
The page will turn.
Yeah, the page will turn. Exactly.
I love it. I know our listeners are going to want to stay connected with you, Jenna, and continue to learn from you. What is the best way for them to do that?
The best way, my website is linkbeforeyousync.com. And if you go on the top, I always clarify, yes, we sell a product, but we share stories. If you don't want to purchase a product, you can share your story for free. Go onto our blog for free. Our Instagram is at linkbeforeyousync, like a kitchen sink. And then our Facebook is Link Before You Sync as well. And then I always give a promo code to any listers. So why don't we just do it? What about this leadership 25? Does that work?
That works.
All right, I'll set that up. So leadership 25 for 25% off if you do want to purchase a piece. But if not, please just go on there and link with us through story sharing.
Love that. I'll make sure those links are in the show notes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for being on the show and for sharing from your own journey. I think you've really brought a level of transparency and authenticity to this, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I thank you so much. And feel free. I check emails. If you have any questions, please email me. It's my email or my contact us. I'm reading those. So if you have any questions or if you'd like to reach out, I save that and maybe I'll just put you in my Just Jenna folder. So please reach out and if you have any questions or if you'd like to share anything.
Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach to help you intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.